What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, what's going on with tomorrow, as we have some very important data coming out. I want to give you guys a very important warning about all this data. But before I break into this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to the market. Looking at SPY, this thing's been pushing quite nicely as we had this attempts to break out from this falling wedge, which I called out in my earlier video. Now, as this thing's been pushing, we hit this resistance right over here, very close to 511.7, or very close to that range. Our support currently is around this 510 area. As SPY is trading like this, please be a little bit mindful of the fact that there's a possible head and shoulders like structure developing intraday. And in order for this to play out, we have to see SPY lose 510.66. We also have resistance at the 200 EMA, which is currently around this 511.32 area. So that being said, I mean, this is just one little intraday setup, but it's not really that crazy. It's just a small move to the downside compared to the move we're about to get tomorrow, in my opinion. So what's happening with tomorrow? What is my warning for everyone? I just wanted to say that tomorrow is Tuesday, March 12th. And we have CPI and core CPI coming out an hour before the market opens. Now, CPI is expected to be around 3.1 to 3.2%, and core CPI needs to be around 3.7 to 3.8%. Generally, we want this to be on the lower end of the spectrum, the lower end of the consensus. So we'll see if we end up getting something like that. So that being said, I just want to make it very clear that you're not going to have another chance to exit your positions if you hold overnight, and that's before CPI ends up coming out. So if you want to exit your positions before CPI comes out for most people, you have to exit today if you want to do that. If you hold overnight, CPI will come out before the market opens. So by the time the market opens again, CPI will be out and the market's going to make a very, very big move. So I just want to give you guys a warning. This is your last chance. If you want to hold overnight, you're going to have to hold through CPI. If you want to exit your position today, you have a chance to exit before CPI comes. CPI is going to cause a very, very big move. Now, which direction do I favor in terms of CPI? Honestly, guys, seeing how the market has dropped, we had a rising wedge like pattern, seeing us trying to break out right here. I think that there's a very good chance the market does try to push higher thanks to CPI. I do favor that at least slightly. Not saying it's going to squeeze to new all-time highs or anything like that, but I do think that there could be an attempt to bounce after this thing ended up grabbing liquidity at that 508 area. So I do favor that somewhat more, but I'm not going to promise it because you have to remember that CPI is very manipulated and nothing in the market's guaranteed, especially when it comes to trying to predict data. So just be very careful with this coming out. And once again, if you want to hold overnight and risk it, it could work out very well for you. If you don't want to risk it, it is what it is. If I were to hold overnight, like let's just say I'm trying to day trade, I want to hold something overnight. What I would do is if I want to play CPI, I would just play with very, very small sums of money relative to my portfolio size. Not going to risk an entire portfolio for it. Just going to use very, very small little positions overnight if I were to play it. I'd use money I'm like completely prepared to lose just to be safe. But once again, guys, SPY dropped quite a bit. We have this falling wedge setup, which could lead to more upside after CPI comes out. But whether you want to play it or not depends on your own preferences. With SPY, there's a head and shoulders right now, so this thing could dip a little bit, but we have to see if it loses 510.66. If we lose that, I could see this thing dipping a bit more towards this area back into the 509s, but then we could be looking for a bounce after that. Whether you want to use this as an entry or if you want to wait for it, whether you're already in or not, it all depends on you. That is your choice, guys. So be very, very careful. And I just wanted to give you guys as many warnings as possible. How is the QQQ looking? Let's talk about the triple Q. The triple Q, in my opinion, is very similar to SPY. Now we have sort of like a falling wedge like setup. I could even redraw this, but I'm not really too worried about that for now. We're going to be watching our resistance at 438. Our support is at this yellow trend line, not to mention 436. And we'll see if the QQQ gets a big break later on. Now for today, it might just continue to consolidate, maybe come down just a little bit, but I'm not really expecting too much. The market closes in a little bit over an hour. And then if you want to hold overnight, it's your choice. If you hold overnight, you're holding through CPI. This is your warning. If not, if you want to exit before CPI and play it safe, you could. What do I think is going to happen? I do favor some upside. We do have a gap to fill above. So I think CPI might help this thing push a little bit higher. There is a good chance that that's going to happen. But just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see. I also want to note that there is a possible kind of like inverse head and shoulders right here, so that does favor this a little bit. Same thing happened on SPY. I'll talk more about that later on. So I do favor that technicals are showing we might bounce a little bit, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see. For Tesla, this thing got a very, very nice push in the morning thanks to some bullish news. Then it came back down, kind of popped and dropped like we were talking about. It just pushed a little bit higher because some more bullish news came out. And now we're just stuck between these ranges. There's this 177 area, 177.6 support. Resistance is getting very close to this 180 area. And now we're just going back and forth and back and forth. We're going to just continue to do this for the rest of the day, in my opinion. This is what I predicted would happen later on. And that's what's happening so far. Now, the question is, okay, what's going to happen with CPI? If CPI launches the market higher, as long as Tesla doesn't have bad news, okay, there's a good chance it may attempt to go higher too. But like I said before, trading CPI could be risky. If you want to risk it, it's your choice. If not, it is what it is. Another thing about Tesla is it also depends on the news. What if there's any updates from the Giga Berlin? So that's another factor with Tesla. It's so news dependent, so this could be a little bit trickier to hold overnight, even on a CPI day. But CPI will dictate this to some large extent, anyways. For Nvidia got this nice little push, came back down. Now it's kind of downtrending a bit, looking a little bit lackluster. So with this little downtrend on Nvidia, and I did tell you all that this thing might come back down. We're going to be looking at our support right here. So we have some support at this 860 area. There's 855 below that. And if we lose that, I could see this thing getting very close to 851. Those are going to be some supports. For resistance, we have 862, 867, 872, followed by 880. Overall, with this little downtrend right here, there's a risk of this dropping just a little bit more, and this might actually drag the QQQ down just somewhat for right now. But after CPI comes out, Nvidia is going to make a very, very big move. We could see Nvidia either bounce or do something different. The technicals are looking a little bit weaker for it, so it's not looking as strong or as convincing to bounce as other tickers. But hey, CPI could always change that, so we'll see if we get a bounce or not. For this one, I'm less certain. I'd rather just like kind of sit out on this. For my personal opinion, just wait and see what happens tomorrow morning. Technicals look a little bit weaker, but CPI does suggest that the market may bounce. So maybe it's going to kind of like invalidate these technicals and try to continue to bounce. But for sure, guys, I just think that I'd rather sit this one out and just wait and see how it pans out. That makes more sense for a stock like Nvidia for the time being. For Aapl, on the other hand, Aapl is showing some strength. So what's good about Aapl is we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure, and we have this unfilled gap. We haven't fully filled this gap yet, and this is a nice accumulation, which does suggest that as we're holding above this trend line, so we broke out of it, we got a back test. Now we're going to attempt to push higher. Technicals do suggest Aapl could try to bounce. Now, why is that? Well, when you look at this, the yellow line was right there, right? Look at this big yellow line across the screen. We rejected every single time. We rejected again right here. And then today we got a break of it. We're coming back down, testing it. Now we're holding above it, which is a good sign of strength. This suggests we could attempt to push it a little bit higher again, and we'll have to see how it goes. Anyways, so if you want to, kind of play the chart, you could technically hold on to your positions overnight, but just know there's a risk in doing so because sometimes at CPI, you never know what's going to happen. Just for a few more, just to be real quick, Rivian is kind of flat right now, just consolidating. CPI is going to dictate this. Supermicro, it came down as we predicted. It came down to about 1,070, and at 1,025 came back up. It's just consolidating. So we'll see if we get a big bounce from this point. It also has a possible inverse head and shoulders setup. Are we about to bounce and push up to at least 1138, if not 1150? Or are we about to come down? We'll just have to wait and see. CPI could help that. The entire market might actually just move in a very, very similar fashion. Uh, Google showing some strength as we predicted yesterday. Amazon showing some weakness off its head and shoulders. So I'd say Amazon's kind of risky. Amazon still has the head and shoulders like set up despite CPI. CPI could cause it to bounce a bit, but then it could end up eventually still coming down thanks to the head and shoulders. Amazon's not looking that great. I also told you that Meta might retest 494, and if we lost this, a bigger drop is coming. That's exactly what's happening. So a lot of these predictions I made yesterday are coming true. So we'll see how things go. But anyways, that is it for this one. Thank you all for listening. Get ready. The market's going to close in a little bit over an hour. If you want to hold overnight, be my guest. If you don't want to, the choice is yours, guys. So make a big decision. Do what's best for your own lives and your portfolios. I wish the best for all of you. Good luck, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but later on today for one more video. And until then, take care, do what you have to do. The market's going to close very soon, and peace out.